Welcome to the Political Checkmate, and today I'm going to checkmate Sam Seder's video called Myths About Taxing the Wealthy and Minimum Wages. But before we can begin, I want to checkmate this cover for the video. So here we basically have two arguments from this image. That the minimum wage has not changed from 2007 to 2020, and the wealth of US billionaires have massively increased during that time period. So first off, this image is conflating wealth and wages, and second, minimum wage represents less than 2% of the workforce, so I don't think they are truly responsible for the massive gains for the billionaires. Third, the minimum wage is simply a starting wage, not the actual wage for workers, and workers can work more to gain a higher wage. After all, a study from the National Bureau of Economic Research has found that most wage gains for minimum wage workers were through career progression. Anyway, now that is checkmated, let's get to the actual video.
So I wanted to ask you guys your opinion on two arguments I get a lot from. I talk to a lot of people who aren't as progressive as I am, and the first one is, listen, if we raise the tax rate too high for the wealthy, they'll all just move. They'll all just get out of there, and then we'll have no tax revenue coming.
Are they saying they'll move from America?
Yes. This is something I hear all the time.
Okay, and all right. Well, I have a couple of answers to that, but do you want me to address that question?
Sure, I can give you the second one too.
Okay. Go ahead.
So the second one is, listen, if we raise the minimum wage too much, Walmart, these big corporations can handle it, but little mom and pop stores, little small businesses, they won't be able to handle it, and you'll just see more giant corporations owning all the small businesses, and owning all the businesses, and all the small businesses will be kicked out.
My answer to the first question would be that the rich would leave because of the higher taxes, since many rich Norwegians left Norway to go to low-tax countries like Switzerland. While for the second question, according to the National Bureau of Economic Research study that looked at 15.2 million small businesses from 1989 to 2013, they found that increasing the minimum wage led to lower bank credit, higher loan defaults, lower unemployment, a lower entry, and a higher exit rate for small businesses. Those are my answers to the questions, but let's see what Sam Seder has to say.
Well, in terms of the first question, the first one, aside from like glibly saying, "Fine, so what?" Like these super wealthy people, however they're making their money, it doesn't mean that they may personally leave the country in terms of their, and not be subject somehow to income tax, but like all of their businesses are going to be here if they are already here. Their business, they don't make their business decision on their personal income taxes. And so we'll tax them here, and that's fine. Then they can't hoard our money. They can hoard somebody else's money. But I would also add, there's very few places that they're going to go around the world and enjoy the standard of living they're having now, where they're not going to find that their taxes aren't higher, frankly. Mm-hmm. Then I would also show them what the tax rate was, the top marginal tax rate was from the 50s into really 1980. And it was at least double what it is now. The highest was 90% for about 10 or 15 years. And then it went down to 75% for every dollar over about $470,000 at that time, which would have been, close to $3 million. I would print out, I would go online and get a table of historical top marginal tax rates and say, how many of these people left the country? Because none did. Well, I'm sure some did, but virtually none. There was no mass exodus.
The rich people themselves leaving would result in less tax revenue overall, while for the businesses, they could shift production to different countries. And I also want to point out that if you were to tax the businesses, you would be harming workers, then, because a study from the National Tax Journal found that a $1 increase in corporate tax revenue decreases wages by approximately 60 cents. So basically, workers receive a heavy tax burden from corporate taxes. Also, rich people are not hoarding money, they are investing with their money. And now, with higher taxes, they would have a lesser incentive to invest into the country's economy. Well, for the countries that the rich people could leave and still have both low taxes and a high standard of living, there are plenty of options, such as Switzerland, Monaco, Liechtenstein, United Arab Emirates, I think I butchered that name, and Singapore, and many other countries. While on your argument of the 1950s marginal tax revenue, You should look at the effective tax rate instead, and according to the Tax Foundation, the effective tax rate in the 1950s was 42%, in 2014 being 36.6%. So basically almost 6% decline. Another thing the Tax Foundation points out is that if we solely look at the marginal income tax rate, it is 16.9% effective income tax rate for the 1950s, and only a small number of taxpayers had enough income to fall into the top bracket.
And what was the second question?
The second question was about how smaller businesses are going to be affected by an increase in the minimum wage.
Seattle.
Yeah. Well, look at Seattle, but also, the proposals that have been floated in Congress have a gradual minimum wage increase. So it gives businesses like that a time to adjust as the minimum wage gets bigger.
And the fact is, you can go and you can show them data from Seattle, all the restaurants there, right? Presumably mom and pop stores. It did not. None of the predictions, the dire predictions that it was going to cause this mass closing of all these restaurants, that didn't happen, because small mom and pop shops, they rely on people who get the minimum wage for their business. So for every dollar they've got to give, one of their employees, they're getting it back in increased business because people have more money. And labor still, even in the context of a small a mom and pop shop, to the extent that those even exist anymore, labor is generally just not one of their most expensive line items. So that's
Okay, government may give businesses time to prepare, but it would still hurt small businesses because of creating an artificial cost of doing business that will create a barrier to entry and unnecessarily increasing the risk of a business dying out. While for the CL citation needed, because I could only find this study looking at CL minimum wage in small businesses, and it found that it caused more businesses to open outside of Seattle. Speaking of Seattle, I would recommend you to read these studies looking at Seattle and finding that the minimum wage harmed workers because of hours being cut and less hiring of low-skilled workers. While for Seder's claim that small businesses benefited from a higher minimum wage, I want to say citation needed because I cited a study showing otherwise, and also labor accounts for 70% of small businesses' spending. This is the end of the video. Thank you for watching, and please donate to my Patreon so I can make more videos and have your video requests checkmated. And thanks for watching, and have a nice day.